Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to the Beyond Wellness Radio podcast. Feel free and head over to justinhealth.com. We have all of our podcast transcriptions there, as well as video series on different health topics ranging from thyroid to hormones, ketogenic diets, and gluten. While you're there, you can also schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or our colleagues and staff to help dive into any pressing health issues you really want to get to the root cause on. Again, if you enjoy the podcast, feel free and share the information with friends or family, and enjoy the show. Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Welcome back to the podcast. I have Dr. Wendie Trubow here. Really excited to have her on the podcast. Wendie is an OBGYN. She deals a lot in the area of detoxification and female hormones, and we're going to have a nice conversation really diving deep into those topics today. Dr. Wendie, how are we doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Justin. Feel free to call me Wendie too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit more about how you got into this field, because you came in, we talked about earlier, you went to Tufts School of Medicine, you were an OBGYN, you were doing surgery, obstetric surgery for a while, delivering babies. How did you make this transition from that kind of angle of medicine into more of a natural health, functional medicine type of approach?
Yeah, there's two major ways that happen. One, I was married to someone who was doing functional medicine, except they didn't really know, you don't really talk about it with your spouse. He just was mentoring with someone in Boston. So I had exposure. But then really, as a result of having such a stressful job and being awake for 36 hours and doing all those things that you referenced, I developed an autoimmune disease, but I didn't know it because I was so sick. Health isn't a straight line and then a plummet. Health is this just gradual decline. So when I hit the point at which I was no longer able to function, I went and saw my husband's mentor and he diagnosed me with celiac disease.
Oh.
But, yeah. So it was personal, right? My mess became my message. So there came a point in my career where I had this moment and I saw there's a lot of people with good hands. There's a lot of people who can do surgery. OBGYN is a pretty straightforward profession in the sense of a lot of it's mechanical, and there's a lot of people who can deal with mechanical issues, but there weren't a lot of people who could deal with women's health, women's hormones, functional medicine for women. And that having experienced it, I couldn't unsee the difference it made. And since I wasn't making that difference, I couldn't keep doing it. So I left OB and went into functional medicine for women.
Wow. And that took about 10 years for that transition to happen?
No, actually, I got diagnosed with celiac when I was 35 and I left my practice when I was 38. So it's actually only 3 years.
And how did you get diagnosed? Was that like an endoscopy or was it just like an antibody test? How was that picked up?
Doctors are the worst patients. So so my dad has celiac, except I was I fell through the cracks. I never got tested. I didn't even know it was familial until I got diagnosed. So I had the antibodies done and they were through the roof, like no question. Everything was way positive. And then the doctor was like, you should have an endoscopy. And I was like, my dad has celiac. My antibodies are through the roof. I'm sick as a dog. What's it going to change? Right. I'm not going to change anything. So I went off gluten. Subsequently, my brothers got diagnosed with celiac. My kids all have gluten sensitivity.
Wow.
It's a really nasty gene. So I didn't have the endoscopy largely because I didn't want to wait another, 3 months to feel better.
And you need that 80%, wearing of that microvilli to even be picked up. And so there has to be a lot of damage there anyway. Plus, a lot of time, just a good elimination provocation diet. If you pull, I tell patients always pull grains out in general because rice and corn and oats could still potentially cross-react. So it's good to cut all grains out. What antibodies came back? Was it like endomysial? Was it just gliadin? Was it transglutaminase? Do you remember?
Yeah, all three.
All three?
I was off the chart and they were all, the cutoff, I think, for the TTG was like 100. I was like 2 something. I mean, it was way off the chart. So that's why I didn't even bother having the endoscopy because I wasn't going to do anything differently.
Yeah.
And I knew my dad had celiac and I was like, oh, this is celiac.
Absolutely. And did you find that you had to really go grain-free or could you get away with a little bit of rice or a little bit of corn? How strict did you have to be?
Yeah. So it depends what phase of my recovery you ask me in. So when I got diagnosed with celiac, I also had a ton of other food sensitivities. So my gut was such a mess from 20 years of undiagnosed celiac and just unremitting inflammation. So I had tons of food sensitivities. I had also candida. And then, fast forward, I also had a ton of toxins that are very corrosive to the gut. So I started by eliminating the top foods that were reactive. And then I went into a candida protocol. But I do fine with corn. I do fine with a lot of things like corn and rice. Yeah. Totally fine. I don't do well with millet, quinoa, buckwheat, teff, amaranth. I don't eat any of those. I don't eat oats. I just don't do well with them. So I tend to be grain minimal, not grain free, but low grain.
Yeah. Try to like 80%, try to keep, it pretty dialed in, and then you can cheat a little bit around the edges. That makes sense.
I don't even consider it cheating. It's more just, it works for me to eat corn and rice. And so I eat those when they're around. I tend to lean towards lower carb, but I don't restrict it. I'll eat it.
So what does a typical day in the life look like for you food wise? Like what does a breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like for you?
Funny. So it's been evolving because I've been working out with these trainers who were like, one of them is like, you need more protein. And the other one is like, you need more carbs. And I was like, oh geez, I'm 53 years old,
Yeah.
My trainer said to me yesterday, I eat 500 grams of carbs a day. I was like, dude, I would never do that. I would never, that was just not me. But so
unless you're very active, because if not, that's going to be insulin resistance probably.
That's not me. I was like, you're half my age and you're twice my weight and he's twice as built as I am. So for him, that works. So a typical day, I normally intermittent fast, and I typically fast until around 12 o'clock. And part of that is just because if I'm clinically seeing patients, I don't eat when I see patients. That's weird.
Right.
So I'll fast until my break, and then I will eat a protein shake for the first meal. I'll have
what time?
Around 12.
Okay.
I'll have, and it's flexible. Like today I didn't do that. I had eggs and manchego cheese and a couple of corn crackers at 10. So it's not, I don't see food like it has to be a certain way. I see it, I generally intermittent fast, and then sometimes I play with it. So
do you allow yourself any coffee or tea in the morning?
I'm pretty jacked up normally, so I don't drink any coffee. If I do drink tea, I love it. It's herbal. And it's just a sort of fun fact. A lot of tea bags come in plastic bags. So you have to make sure that they don't have a plastic bag. So Yogi Tea and traditional medicinals are the two brands I tend to gravitate towards.
Those are good brands. Yeah.
But right now what I'm drinking is bone broth with collagen in it. And salt.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really cool. So you're trying to keep the carbs down. And then do you start your day with some good hydration, some electrolytes in your water? Like what does your morning routine look like?
Yeah. So when I wake up, so it's also shifted because I've been really sick, actually. And you're the first person I'm actually even talking to it about. So it looks like I have probably a tick-borne illness, and it looks like it's probably Bartonella. I did testing. It was inconclusive, and now I'm doing more testing, but clinically it looks like Bartonella. So when I look back, I've been sick since I got a mold exposure in July.
Oh.
And so before that, I was doing, metals and mold detox, and I would wake up and take supplements and drink a lot of fluid.
Yeah.
But since I got very sick in September, I've switched it because I also I got headaches, I got brain fog, I got esophagitis. So everything bothered me. This is like really crazy. So in the last month, what I've done is I've stopped 95% of my supplements unless they can be liquid, and started doing, when I wake up, I do magnesium in a powder form. So I stick it in water, and I do mastic gum, which I take out of the caps and I literally just put in my mouth. It's a very interesting experience.
Do you think that esophagitis was caused by any H. pylori?
I haven't tested yet, but it all kind of came together when I got this mold exposure, and I flared with a tick-borne illness, which was probably there before, but it wasn't bothering me till I got the mold exposure. So it's all shifted.
With the tick-borne thing, did you feel like did you see a tick? Did you see any exposure? You see any bite? Or are you just assuming it based on the neurological symptoms?
So I live in Massachusetts, and it's rife with ticks. I did pull a tiny tick off myself 18 months ago. I pulled it off and was watching for symptoms and didn't see anything. And it was on for, 20, 30 minutes. Literally, I was like, what's on my ankle? And I kind of pinched it with my fingers and pulled it off. So it wasn't really even embedded. It was just there. So that's the tiniest of exposures. Was not there for 24 hours. It wasn't engorged. It was I just pulled it off.
On the surface.
It was basically surface. So I watched myself for a couple of months, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'm fine. And then I got a mold exposure in July and went off the cliff, and I wasn't well since then. So there's a lot to unpack there. So when you talk about what's my normal routine is because of the celiac, I take a ton of supplements because I don't absorb well. Yeah. But that's all on hold right now. So I'm doing glutathione, vitamin C. I do peptides. I'm doing the larazotide acetate to support healthy gut lining, and I do BPC and KPV together in a pill form. Yeah. So I do those, and then I do the I do the mastic gum and the magnesium, and then I do at nighttime. I'm doing progesterone because I'm 53, so I'm on
Yeah.
hormones,
Yeah.
and melatonin, and some adrenal support.
That's good. Yeah, it's really important that clinicians be applying and practicing what they preach. I mean, if
Yeah.
not, you can just feel the lack of authenticity when you're interacting with patients. Patients can kind of see through that and feel it. So I like to see, your daily routine. Now, when you had the Lyme issue, did you feel like the mold issue kind of weakened the immune system and set the stage for the Lyme or the Lyme co-infection to kind of take root? What's your intuition on that?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, Justin. When I look back, I, I'm a math human. I love
Yeah.
math. It's how I calm myself down. If I'm ever
Yeah.
too jacked up and can't fall asleep, I do math problems in my head, like
Yeah.
compound interest over time. And
Yeah.
I found there were signs of having had a tick-borne illness before, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just thought I was very stressed. And so
Mm.
about 8 months ago, I noticed that my ability to do math in my head was impaired. I couldn't do math.
Mm.
And I was like, where is that coming from? And then I was like getting through. And then I had the mold exposure. And, mold is extremely challenging to the immune system,
Right.
the gut. So when I got that exposure, I went off the cliff. I never recovered. My brain stopped working. I was
Wow.
disorganized. I was emotional. I had poor recovery. I was fatigued. I was low motivation. It was a mess. And I, hit it because I'm a clinician and I really need to be there for people. But I got very sick in September, end of September, where I could kind of barely function sick. And since then, I've really been working on not only drilling into what's going on, but also getting all the things I need so I feel good, because I didn't feel good.
Yeah, I see this a lot. My wife had a tick bite over the summer. The first thing I do preventatively, because I've
Mhm.
seen issues like this where it's months later,
Yeah.
is get them on some kind of an herbal tincture formula, whether it's like cat's claw, uh, cryptolopus, sitta, acuta, andrographis,
Mhm.
astragalus. It's different herbs that have been around for
Yeah.
millennia that work very good. I think it's anyone listening, if you get a tick bite, definitely jump on a good herbal support, see a functional medicine person preventatively to jump on it. That makes
Don't
sense.
do what I did.
Yeah. And it's tough though, because like, oh, you're like, hey, didn't dig in deep. I didn't see a bullseye rash. It's going to be fine. And then
Only
months later,
50% of people have a bullseye.
I know that's true.
So you,
And
you
that,
don't have to have, but for me, I was justifying it like, well, I've dealt with my mold. I've been on a mold protocol for years,
yeah.
and it wasn't on the conventional wisdom is 24 hours, that the tick has to be on you for 24 hours. I think
Yes.
that's BS, honestly, because my husband got Lyme after like a 15-minute exposure. Who
Yes.
knows? Maybe it's the thing that tips you over, right? But no, I really do would agree. It's very hard to treat yourself, but 100%, if you get a tick bite, deal with it. Don't do what your doctor did.
Oh yeah, and there's I'll get your take on it too. I went to UMass Amherst. I grew up in the
Oh,
same
me
area
too.
that you did. Yeah. Oh, you did?
Hmm.
That's cool. All right, cool, awesome. Well, I'm not sure but there's a big tick lab out there, and they have a website called
Yeah.
Tick Report. Did you ever send your tick out there to get analyzed?
My tick, no, because we're in the car. I'm like,
Yeah.
tossed it out the window. But I do send people to tell people to get their ticks sent over to UMass, and it's cheap. It's, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
something like 30, $40. It's cheap.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Like my wife's tick, we did it and there was nothing on it. And it's good. You paid a little bit of money. It's worth it for that peace of mind, or at least save it. At least save it. And then if you have issues, you can always then send it over
Mm-hmm.
there and then, you can, exactly what's up. So that's tickreport.com. We'll put that link down below. And so tell me a little bit more about the mold, because the mold happened over the summer. Do you feel like the mold made the tick issue more susceptible, where if the mold was an issue, you feel like maybe you would have brushed it off? What's your intuition?
Yeah, well, I mean, mold makes Lyme works.
Yes.
Whenever I'm
Mhm.
diagnosing someone with Lyme, my next
Yep.
step is to test them for mold, because we're
Yeah,
going to deal with the mold and metals before we deal with Lyme. And
totally.
that's not to say you have to finish your mold treatment, but you need to be in the process of dealing with mold, because it does make it so much worse. I was very lucky in the sense of I can tell when I get a mold exposure. So I went into a home, it was moldy, and I was like, there's mold here. So I literally used the bathroom and left. It was like a 15-minute exposure, Justin. But because I was so stressed, and we've been in the midst of expanding our business and hiring, and
Yeah.
it was very busy. And so being stressed lowers your immune system, mold lowers your immune system. I had this underlying issue with the tick bite that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
It's not that I forgot. It was more just like I didn't have issues for a year. So it was
Yeah.
like, whatever, it's not a problem.
And was the mold exposure that acute, like 15 minutes at a house, or did it happen in your house too?
It wasn't my house. I
Wow.
was sick though, Justin. We were looking at a home to see if we wanted to buy it. And we
Yeah.
went in and I was like, there's mold here. We're not buying this. My husband was sick. My daughter was sick. The real estate agent was sick and the inspector was sick. All five of us were sick from it. But I was the
Wow.
first to be like, oh, this is not okay. I was sick for the weekend. I remember
Wow.
being really like not well that weekend and taking extra binders and doing a sauna and I jumped on it, but still it set me off. So
Yeah.
because it's so challenging to the immune system, yes, a mold exposure or a major toxins exposure can activate you essentially.
Wow. And I find most homeowners, when they're selling their home, they will not be forthright with any
Yeah.
significant water damage or mold issues. That's why I always tell patients, just go get at least a mold agar plate, hang out in that place for an hour, close it up, wait 4 days, count how many little polka dot spores you have. I have a patient right now who was looking at moving and he was doing that. And he's like, it was coming off like 20, 30, like you couldn't even count the amount of spores. That's a good
Yeah.
kind of heads up.
We actually made the purchase contingent on mold testing because I'm so sensitive and I have terrible genes. So I said, that's it. It's contingent on mold testing. And so I recommend people do that. Make your sale contingent on looking
Smart.
for what doesn't work.
100%. Now, how are you testing it? Just air? Are you doing an ERMI? Are you doing any of the agar plate testing? All three?
No, usually we're hiring a company who will do formal testing. So it's like, I think they charged us $150 or $200 to do the testing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the agar plate, it was more air testing. But honestly, we didn't even need to do it because we walked in and I was like, there's mold. And then they walked in the basement and they were like, oh, the basement's really moldy.
Oh, and also just a good rule of thumb is if someone has, let's just say, a basement and they don't have a good dehumidifier running all the time, you're going to have mold. The basement is going to be a heat sink from the moisture in the soil and bring it right up in. And you're going to have, like my basement, when I purchased my home, it was 20% higher in humidity than every other floor in the house. And so I have two dehumidifiers running down here. My humidity right now is at 38%. Any area in your home that's chronically above 50%, you're going to have, subacute levels of mold. Not like, black mold from a leak in your roof or a pipe bursting, but just that chronic high humidity. All you need is moisture, carbohydrate, and air, and you're going to have potential mold growth. That's it.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about your approach to detox. Well, first off, where did that, I've seen air testing from certain companies come back negative, and then some of the plates come back positive. So I like the plates because they're cheaper, and you can go to your Home Depot, and at least that's a good starting point.
Home Depot is great.
Yeah.
It's like $15 for a thing. Yeah. And I always say to people, test every room if you're doing it yourself.
And you won't know what the kind of mold is, but you at least know, okay, it's lit, it's off the charts, and then you can resend it to the lab after the fact. So that's good. So, okay, came back positive. How are you treating yourself? Are you doing sauna? Is it just glutathione? Do you add in binders? Do you use pharmaceutical binders? What's your approach?
Yeah, so it's evolved over time. So there's a lot of options. And what I say to people is pick the thing that works for you. So we, because I also had heavy metals and other environmental toxins, we invested in a sauna, and there's a million levels at which you can get a sauna. Yep. So we got a sauna, and
what's the brand? Sunlighten or?
We do Sunlighten.
Yeah, me too.
But there's a fantastic brand that's portable called Therasage, and it's got no off-gassing and no plastic. So that's a fantastic brand. It's like $1,200. So it's Therasage. It's like $1,200. It's an investment, but it's not as expensive as the Sunlighten, and it's portable. So if you have a smaller space, you can break it down and put it in the closet. Yeah. And that's nice. So you can do Epsom salt soaks, sauna. I don't love. Yep. Sometimes I love the bath and sometimes I don't, but I love the sauna. So I go in the sauna, and then I also have been taking binders for about 4 years. Ooh. And what I've been taking, I started out taking. I had 5 strains of mycotoxins when I first started this game. So I started out with Welchol, which is a prescriptive agent. It's cholestyramine.
Yep.
It was originally designed for cholesterol, but it's a terrible cholesterol drug. It doesn't work, but it's great for mold. It's a great binder. So I was taking that, chlorella, charcoal, and clay. So I was taking those 4 items twice a day, morning and night. And then the more I got into this, what I started to see was that there's a fiber called the propylmanin fiber, which binds to all the strains of mycotoxins. And so I thought, okay, well, if it binds all the strains, then I switched over. So I still do the chlorella because it's helpful for the metals, but I also do now fiber with the propylmanin fiber and chlorella. I do those 2 things. And I got off of the Welchol, the clay and charcoal, just because you have to spend 2 hours without food or drink, and
Yeah.
it made it very challenging. So
Yeah.
I stopped doing that just because it was too challenging, and I found something better. So
That makes sense.
now, and because I haven't felt well, I've been doing more Epsom salt soaks, and Epsom salt's great for mycotoxins detox,
Yeah.
and it's good for Epsom salt. We're all kind of chronically low mag, and so
Yeah.
it's because we use this thousands of different chemical reactions every millisecond.
Yeah.
We all need mag. So I was like, oh, I'll do an Epsom salt soak every night. So it kind of evolves. Exercise is helpful, getting sweaty, getting
Yeah.
enough sleep, not being a stress ball.
Yeah.
These are all platform behaviors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Epsom salt's magnesium sulfate, and by doing it through your skin, you're bypassing the gut, and you're going to supersaturate those levels. Very anti-inflammatory. That's great. Now, regarding the sauna, I like the sauna because a lot of heavy metals or a lot of mold removal happens via hepatobiliary. And so if you have someone that has a lot of poor gut function, you can kind of bypass that and push it to the skin, maybe while you're fixing the gut. So I definitely like that. What other binders have you done? Like, have you done any like modified citrus pectin? Have you done any like beetroot powder? How about any fulvic minerals? Do you have any opinions on those?
So I love beets, but it's not mutual.
Okay.
They don't like me.
Yeah.
So I don't do any beet powder because I get sick. But I actually do Pectisol every day. I just forgot. Cool. My life is organized around detox, so I forget. But yeah, I have my water over there, and I just throw Pectisol, the powdered form of it, in, and I do that every day.
That's awesome.
And then fulvic acid, I love it. I have it. I'm just right now, I'm not taking pills because of the esophagitis. So no, I think it's fantastic.
That makes sense.
And then there's a great product. I just got it to trial from Microbiome Labs. They have a metals binder powder that binds to any metal that makes it into your gut. It's called Mega Metallic. Yep. And so I'm about to start that because it's a powder and it's easy. And so we tend to release about 1% of our metals into our gut every day, but we recycle 99% of that. So really you're getting 0.1% of your metals out in any given day. So I'm about to trial that to see if we can keep moving the metals along.
Yeah, and that's a freeze-dried lactoplantum plantarum.
Yeah, it's a probiotic strain, actually. Yeah. Crazy enough, it's not going to do anything to you except help the gut.
Yeah, and it seems like also there's a lot of data on probiotics in the gut actually kind of neutralizing some of the mold toxicity. I know I've seen some data on just having good healthy bacteria makes the mold less toxic, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like a garden, right? If you have a good, well-based garden, you're not going to have weeds growing as much. So you need to plant your garden with things that are healthy. Absolutely.
Is most of the mold that you have in your system, is it more Aspergillus, Penicillium, Stachybotrys, any species?
Ochratoxin, a lot of phenol.
So ochre is a mycotoxin of what? Aspergillus, I think? It's Aspergillus.
Ochratoxin, I don't know. I'm not good at that.
Because I always tell patients, because usually you have mycotoxins, which are basically the flatulence of mold, right? You have your big three: Aspergillus, Penicillium, Stachybotrys, citrinin, and then you have the mycotoxins, which are the flatulence of those big molds. And so, so those are what tends to cause a lot of the problems. Are you monitoring it via like a urine analysis?
Yeah. So I literally just got my testing back about 2 weeks ago. So the first time I did it was 4.5 years ago, and I had 5 strains, all very high. And then, what happens when you test is the numbers go up as you're treating. So the middle time I had gotten down to 3 strains. The third time I did it was 2 strains. This time I have 1 strain. It's slightly higher than what I started at. And I'm assuming that when I got the mold exposure this summer that I probably got an ochratoxin exposure, because otherwise there's no other strains that showed up. No citrinin. Citrinin is citrinin's indicative of multiple strains. So there wasn't that.
Yep.
I was like, okay, we're pretty good here. So I just have this 1 strain left.
Wow. Yeah. Ochratoxin is Aspergillus
everywhere.
And or Penicillium.
And it's everywhere. It's in your food. It's in your drink. It's in your wine. It's everywhere. So that's probably the most challenging. And everyone has it. Almost everyone comes up positive when they test.
Absolutely. Now, when you test with my patients, I always like to, and a lot of the tests will say, don't take glutathione, don't take this. I always use some level of NAC and glutathione for a couple of days to a week before, just to purge the system so we can actually catch it in the urine. I find patients that have mold issues or mycotoxin issues, a lot of times the reason why they're so sensitive is they're not pushing it out of their system. So I always like to do a little bit of a purge so I can see what's there. A lot of the labs will say no. What's your take on it?
We've been doing glutathione,
Yeah.
and we were just at a conference where they explained why you shouldn't. Of course, I have brain fog right now, so I'm like, why
Yes.
shouldn't I don't remember what they said, but I
Yes.
remember the take-home message was don't do the glutathione. I was like, okay, so we've switched over to not doing it. I don't have a runway enough to tell you if clinically it's significant,
How
but
about
they were
NAC though?
saying I mean, look, NEC is great for your
Yeah.
liver, and everybody needs that, and alpha lipoic acid and magnesium. People say to me, "What are the things I need?" I'm like, "You need vitamin D, you need magnesium, you need to liver support." So I have no problem with that. I think because it makes glutathione, ultimately, it might be a little counterproductive if they're saying don't do glutathione, but we've been doing glutathione for years and getting results. So I would say it's fine. It's not
Yeah,
a
and
problem.
I've just formed my opinion because I've run pre and post with or without, and
Mhm.
sometimes you just don't see the mole come out, and then what could be more worse for a patient is give them a false negative,
Right,
and then it's like, oh, they think they're fine, but maybe they're not. And then
right.
also too with a lot of mold stuff, I will because glutathione is important, we know that, but it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, and that's an issue. That's why NAC I think is such an important component because that can
Mhm.
cross the blood-brain barrier and then convert to glutathione in the brain, which I think is
Mhm.
important. Any comments on that on
I
the brain
think you're on the
side?
right track. No, I mean, I think you're on the right track. And I think, it, I don't know, maybe I'm just old and cynical, but everybody wants the next greatest thing.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the next greatest thing is get enough sleep, don't be a stress ball,
Mhm.
move your body, eat amazing food, and have great relationships with people.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing those foundational things, it doesn't matter how much NAC and glutathione. I say to people, they
100%.
can give you the best supplements in the world,
Yep.
but you need to handle your foundation of your life first. And we can't
Totally.
go anywhere cool until we deal with the foundation. So I'm sort of feeling a lot now like nobody sleeps, right? Everyone's like, oh, I got 5 hours of sleep. I'm like, oh, that's not
Yeah.
enough. You
Right.
need like 8 hours in bed to
Right.
get 7 hours of sleep.
Right. 100%.
So so I think it's fantastic. And I just don't want to step over, don't forget your foundations of your health. Because that's going to
100%.
take you farther. That's going to take you farther than the coolest, latest, greatest biohacking thing is just make sure that you eat, sleep, poop, move your body, have good relationships, and then deal with detox. So I just want to not step over that.
No, I 100% agree. I see patients all the time. I'll see patients that have gone to some of the most well-known clinicians in the world, and I'll see some of the most foundational things missed. And I tell patients out of the gate, when you come in, we're going to work on the very non-sexy foundations, like building a home. It's not that sexy.
So
Putting a bunch
boring.
of concrete in, it's
Yeah.
boring. It's simple, but like that's where everything sits on top of. So if we want to do
Yeah.
this fancy protocol or this fancy hormonal balancing, well, we have to make sure blood sugar is good, nutrient density is good, digestion, motility, sleep, hydration, electrolytes. And then if we have in stress management, if we have that good, then we can stack everything up on that solid foundation versus
Yes.
the foundation of sand. So I think that's so important.
Yeah. You cannot build a healthy body on a crappy foundation.
Yeah,
No question.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let me just pivot this conversation more to toxicity and female hormones. So I see a lot
Mhm.
of patients that come in, fibroids, endometriosis. Tell me about what you think the root underlying kind of etiology is. I mean, obviously, I think estrogen dominance, I think
Yeah.
toxicity that may mimic estrogens in the environment, plastics, pesticides. What's your take on it? And then also, how much does exogenous estrogens from like birth control pills or other things contribute as well?
All right. There's a lot to unpack there,
Yeah.
Justin. So,
Yeah.
so all right. So just as you can't get healthy if your foundation is
Yeah.
improper, we're all being deluged with a ridiculous number of environmental insults
Mhm.
every day. And then if you're female, you're putting on makeup and dyeing your
Huge.
hair. And by the time you sit down for your day, you've gotten exposed to anything from 150 to 300 chemicals. And a lot of those are endocrine disrupting. What does that mean? Endocrine disrupting means it looks like your hormones, it acts like your hormones, you detox it like your hormones.
Mhm.
It actually binds to the hormones tighter than your own hormones. It binds to the
Mm.
receptors tighter. And then you have to deal with it. You have to get it out. And how do you deal with it is with your liver. And so it goes through the same process that most toxins are fat soluble. Your liver deals with them.
Yes.
And so your liver's on deck to deal with anything it gets presented with, but your hormones are also fat soluble and get dealt with in the liver. And so my take on it is that we're drowning. We're standing under this huge waterfall and then going, why am I wet? Right?
Yeah.
Like, why is my hair frizzy? Well, you're standing underneath a waterfall and getting exposed. So the challenge is that it's become invisible, right?
Mhm.
Everything's plastic.
Mhm.
Everything that your makeup, your hair products, even your food, all of these things are plastic and they are leaching into what we're eating, drinking, using, putting on our bodies. So the level of convenience that we have in our life is great, but the exposures that we're getting are devastating. And it starts to become difficult for the body to see the difference in, right? It just acts like your hormones, except it can also lead to estrogen dominance and improper effect. So where are we headed with that? We're headed to, you need to make sure that if you're going to live on this earth, and obviously you don't have any other choices, that you optimize the downstream, the outflow, right? You minimize the inflow to the best ability. Don't drink from single-use plastic water bottles. Level up on your beauty products. Go to Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, and have it. Make sure it's clean. Eliminate. Don't drink your calories. Don't drink alcohol because it shuts down liver detox. It impairs the liver at dealing with the toxins and the estrogen mimickers because it's dealing with alcohol. Alcohol is a clear and present danger. So eliminate or minimize alcohol. Get enough sleep because you detox while you sleep. And then you want to look at how do you boost up your ability to get rid of these, not only your own hormones, but also the estrogen mimicking substances. So don't drink alcohol. Ensure that you're pooping every day at least once, and not bunny poops. Bunny poops do not cut it. It really needs to be a nice, lovely, long poop. The reason is if you're constipated, you will, in your gut, start to recycle these bound water-soluble toxins. When you recycle them, you separate them. They're no longer bound. They're no longer water-soluble. They're back to their free radical state. Brief primer. Liver goes phase 1, takes it from its toxic hormone or toxicity state into free radical, and then phase 2 binds it, makes it water soluble and inert. Phase 3, you pee, poop, or sweat it out. So if you're constipated, you separate the binder and go back to essentially the free radical state, and now you go through the whole process again. So if your liver is in any way impaired, you can't deal with all the inputs that you're having. So what do I say to people? I say to people, so when you talk about birth control pills, this is a tough one, Justin, because some women can't tolerate the IUDs. Some men aren't willing to wear condoms.
So when you say IUD, you're referring to like a copper IUD, like a Paragard?
Copper or hormonal. They for some reason can't tolerate it or feel unsafe or whatever. So so when you think about, okay, what's worse? Having to detox from your hormones or having an unintended pregnancy or severe financial distress, I think those second options are worse than you'll just have to deal with the impact, right? So this isn't a black or white conversation. This is, how do you do the best with the opportunities you have, and don't sweat the rest. Okay. So birth control pills, absolutely, they are synthetic. They are synthetic estrogen and progestins. They are exactly what I'm talking about, that you have to process those. And if it's that versus nothing, cool, don't do the pill. But if it's that versus an unintended pregnancy or feeling unsafe or financial distress, do the pill, and we'll deal with the health as we go. It's always a trade-off.
So how about the different types? I know there are some different IUDs or kind of progesterone type of birth controls. Like I know the Mirena is an IUD, it's higher dose. Then there's like the Skyla or the Kyleena that are lower dose. Do you have any opinion on those for women that are trying to avoid the estrogen dominance from birth control pills?
I would do the Paragard, which is copper IUD. If you're really someone who has estrogen dominance,
non-hormonal. That's
no
non-hormonal.
Hormones. No, and I usually say, since it is copper, most people don't need copper, they need zinc, and copper and zinc compete for the same, think of it like an elevator in and out of the cells. They compete for the same receptor. So you want to definitely take zinc if you're on a copper IUD.
Yep.
But if you're really concerned about that, if you have a history of liver dysfunction, if you have estrogen dominance, fibroids, breast cancer, early cancerous changes, dysfunctional bleeding, weight gain that you can't get rid of, then they would say, okay, go for the Paragard. The Mirena, the Kyla, the Skyleena, Kyleena, these are all synthetic progesterones. They are not progesterone, they're progestins.
Is that better than a synthetic like ethanol estradiol? Or do you put them in the same camp?
No, they're all in the same camp. They're all synthetic. Okay. You got to deal with them.
So even though one's estrogen synthetic, one's progesterone, you still kind of put them equal in regards to their negative effects hormonally.
Well, would I put them equal? No, you still need to deal with them equally. I would say that a smaller dose of local hormones that's in the uterine area preferentially and doesn't generally get systemic is better.
Better.
It's a level up, but it's still a synthetic hormone that you need to process. So it depends. It really depends. So I would say best in class would be no hormones and then a local hormone. I'm sorry, and then the copper IUD and then the local hormone and then systemic would be my least favorite because yes, it is both estrogen and progestin.
Now, someone could tolerate a hormonal-based IUD. Could they also probably just tolerate the Paragard copper-based IUD instead?
Yes, but for some women, if you have estrogen dominance,
Yep.
you often have heavy periods, cramping, fibroids. So the progesterone is going to inhibit that and quiet that down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything else you want to say on how you deal with and address fibroids or endometriosis, just this abnormal tissue cell growth? We understand like all the foundational things: diet, lifestyle, detoxification, stress, sleep. Are there any specific things that you find in your clinical practice helpful on the detoxification? Or do you feel like, hey, if it's grown this far, we may have to have a surgical intervention to get that tissue out? What's your take?
Sometimes people need surgical interventions.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question, right? If you have a mechanical issue, you need a mechanical solution. If you're at the point of no return, I say to people, if you're at the point where if you had a 30, 40% improvement, you'd be okay, then I would recommend we do a functional medicine approach because we can get you anywhere from a 30 to 80% improvement over a runway of 6 to 12 months. But if you're at the point where you have severe anemia, your hemorrhoids are pissing out blood every month and you need transfusions and iron infusions, then it's too late, right? We don't have enough of a runway to get you where you need to go. It really depends how far down the path you've gotten. But it is, I used to have a fibroid. Used to being the key term. It's gone. It wasn't huge. It was on the outside of the uterus. It wasn't causing abnormal bleeding. It was just there. It was about 4 centimeters, but it's gone. And that's the impact of this work. But it's a runway. It's not an overnight kind of thing.
Any specific nutrients you find helpful, like EGCGs or
all of the above? Flax,
calcium glucarate. Yeah.
Yes, but again, Justin, you got to start with the foundational and 100%. Then deal with what's not working. But yes, all of the above. And really what I'm doing when we're dealing with fibroids is we're supporting detox because you need to improve your liver's ability to process all the way through estrogen. And then you need to make sure that the gut is good so you can poop it out.
100%. So let's assume all that's dialed in. Do you feel like if there is estrogen dominance, right, you're fixing that, but also progesterone's low. Do you feel like adding in progesterone can fuel some of that growth, or do you find it's helpful?
No, it's generally helpful because estrogen dominance means you have too much estrogen in relationship to your progesterone. Right. So adding in progesterone is actually very helpful for a lot of women because that estrogen dominance, you know what it's like. Yeah. It's really disruptive. It can mess with your mood. It can mess with your sex drive. It messes with your weight loss. It messes with everything. It worsens your PMS. And so when you add in the progesterone, it can actually be life-changing for women because they're no longer experiencing that overwhelming estrogen dominance.
Yeah. And some people, I tell patients all the time, I run tests all the time, you could still have estrogen dominance, but still have lower estrogen. That's very possible. There's no way that progesterone estrogen ratio, 20, 23 to 1, but you could be, 10 to 1, 5 to 1, but everything's just low on that lower side too.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? It's just that the seesaw is weighted towards the estrogen instead of being balanced between the estrogen and progesterone. So 100%, you can be imbalanced and still be low.
Excellent. Well, we're going to put Dr. Wendie's information down below. She is a free gift, drwendie.com. I'll put the link down below. Dr. Wendie's website is 5journeys.com. She sees patients on the functional medicine side all over the world. We'll put some resources in the description. If you guys want to click there, feel free and check out Dr. Wendie's information. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with today, Dr. Wendie? 2
things. 1, to get the free gift, which is the quiz and a non-toxic guide to healthy living in chapter 1 of our book. You need to go to drwendie.com/gift.
Yep.
Otherwise, you won't be able to find it just on the site.
And the link will be below. Everything is below in the description, guys. So if you're driving, just table this and hit that link later.
Yes. And the thing that I would leave people with is this is a process, right? It can feel overwhelming to go from 0 to want to be at feeling freaking amazing, which is our guidepost. But it's a process and a drop becomes a ripple, becomes a wave. So don't give up, keep working and don't give up and keep looking for someone who's right for you. If you're looking for a provider.
Well, thanks for sharing this awesome information. I find that clinicians, doctors that have gone through their own health journey themselves have more empathy. They've been through it. They get it. So I really appreciate, you sharing all your health experiences today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Dr. Wendie, take care.